Are we ready back there? I call this meeting to order. This is a Livingston Parish Ordinance Committee meeting. Today's Thursday, December 8th. It's a few minutes after 5 o'clock.
Mr. Mack? Here. Mr. Talbert?
Here.
Mr. Ard?
All right. Jumping right in, old business. Item number 3A, y'all, is discuss zoning reclassification process. I just wanted to discuss this a little bit about the process to reclassify. You know, we've been adopting certain council districts, you know, zoning maps. And to reclassify, we have an ordinance on how to reclassify your property. Or maybe you feel like your property's not classified correctly, you need to get it changed, okay? Section 117-51, amendments, changes, and variances, right? It basically says you can change in let's see, let me read it to you real quick. Amendments, changes, or variances shall be initiated in the following ways: by action of the parish council itself, by introduction of an ordinance, or by adoption of a resolution or motion. To me, we're covered. I wanted to get y'all's feedback. If you contact your councilman, remember we had kind of discussed maybe giving people till the end of 2023. Contact your councilman. They can put it on the agenda. You know, and we can discuss reclassification either through resolution or ordinance by majority vote of the council. Y'all agree?
I do agree with that, but I think towards the end of the year, we might want to look at making it to where it's just by ordinance once it becomes rock solid law.
Okay.
Just something we might want to revisit.
I think they should all be done by ordinance because they're established by ordinance. Zoning is established by ordinance. So any changes that the council makes
To a parcel of property.
should be by ordinance.
Do you want to change it now? You want to talk about introducing it now?
And the reason we're saying my resolution is because we told everybody we would do the first year as a working document.
Okay. Here's my concern is that we had talked about any change after the first year. So I think we ought to put December 31, 2023 as the cutoff. Okay. We can do it by ordinance. We could actually do it by resolution up until that point. After that, it's got to go through planning and then be agreed upon by the council.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's what I'm saying.
So you know, up until December 3rd, 2023, it can be done by resolution.
Just like it says.
Yeah, because I mean, we still got people out there that don't even know that we zone this stuff.
Right.
And they're running into these issues and calling and saying, oh, I didn't even know my property was zoned.
But if you look at 2, upon recommendation by the planning commission,
Is there action needed right there, Lauren? Did we agree that we were going to put a date on that?
We could do a recommendation to the council to add a date to it.
Yeah, I think we need to do a recommendation to the council to add a date that.
That's going to be an ordinance introduction.
Or do you want to?
That's this ordinance to add that modification.
We want to basically make it to where after December 31st, it has to be by ordinance.
So we talked about this morning in our meeting, and typically the way that you guys do waivers, you could, as a council, pass a, waiver, I guess, waiving the requirements set forth in these sections for reclassification of zoning until December 31st, 2022, and then do the resolution.
Here's my concern. My concern is.
I agree with you.
My concern is that anything we do up until December 31, 2022, whatever way we do it, can you come straight to the council? After December 31, 2023, the only way to get a reclassification is to go through planning and get a recommendation from planning that it is.
They need zoning change.
Well, that it meets the state. It is. What is the term? That it.
Requirements?
Well, no, that it's conducive to the property next to it. It's like what's going on in that area, meaning that it's either conforming or non-conforming to the existing properties around it. And then at that point in time, if it's determined to be the change is conforming, then a recommendation from the planning comes to the council for approval. meaning you can't shortcut planning after 2023.
Okay, so to
Well, I
be,
understand what you're saying. My only concern with that is
You're going to have a majority vote of the
yeah,
council.
I still want a little checks and balance on it.
Because,
So
you
by
know,
resolution, you still got to get 4 other votes
exactly.
to be able
so
to
you
change
do,
it.
so to cover,
But read that 11751, Lauren. I mean, to me, we're covered there. We just need to add the date.
yeah,
Because, I mean, it says, it
Just need
says
to
by
say-
action of the parish council itself. I mean, people can just contact their councilman, they can put it on the agenda, and then we can pass a resolution or an ordinance to make the change if you get your majority vote of the council. Right? Team?
right.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, we're covered.
We just want it to where after the 31st.
After December 31st, 2023, it's got to go to planning. And then I think what you got to do is the planning commission has to say it's conforming to what's around it.
Yeah, and so you could just maybe,
And the recommendation needs to come for council for approval. I mean, that's my, if we're not going to do that, I mean, we just,
so on 11751-1, you could just, and this ain't the way you got to do it, but you could just add the words up until December 31st, 2023, and then after that, we can just take it out.
After December 31st, you only be able to do it by ordinance.
Yeah, and it says, it basically says, after that, number 2 says, upon recommendation by the Planning and Zoning Commission, after determination by the Planning and Zoning Department Director that the amendment or supplement or change to the regulations, restrictions, zoning district, or boundaries should be made, or you gotta
And then yeah.
follow this process. And it's a process. It talks about posted notice, how you notify the surrounding property owners, and you got to put, and we could talk about changing some of this at a later date, but it talks about putting a door hanger, notice. Let's see, what is this one? This number 11752-2, a door hanger type notice setting forth the date, time, place, and purpose of the public hearing. After December 31st, 2023, you're going to have a public hearing. It's going to be adopted by ordinance. You're going to have to let people communicate how they feel about this modification.
Right now, they can just come to us, talk to us individually.
Put it
then
on
we
the
can bring
agenda.
it to the council.
right.
And we can vote on it by resolution to
That's
change
right.
it.
Right, so I think,
and then look, trust me, before 2023 is over, we can revisit. We can figure out, look,
What's best?
we've had enough people that understand it, or it's still Greek to
Still
everybody, and we need
working.
a
Right.
longer time. And
Yeah.
we can go back and amend it at that point in time.
yeah. Okay.
That, we just want to add a date. Or you think it'd be better just
thi-
wait till the end and just revisit it?
I think that if we add a date, then we're going to have to amend the ordinance again to take the date away,
As
because
long
y'all
as
are
just-
still going to do it.
At the end of the year, we'll just amend it to say, to take out that part about the resolution and just make it where it only says by ordinance.
Good with that, too.
Okay, so I thought and I'm confused again. I thought the whole purpose was that they could come straight to the council up until whatever the cutoff date is. After that, it's got to go through the planning commission.
The council
we
just,
agreed to.
and
And
that's what,
that's how we want it. That's how we want it.
So, look, I don't
so
think we
y'all,
got,
it's going to go through the planning commission, and then y'all will adopt the
then
ordinance
we will accept or reject their recommendation
by ordinance.
by ordinance.
Okay,
That way, the public has 2 opportunities. The public has the opportunity to go speak to the planning commission.
okay, so
And then the
this
public has
ordinance,
the option to come talk to the council as an ordinance to change the zoning.
okay, so what y'all are doing now, this ordinance covers. In order for that to work, we're
Correct.
going to have to make some minor changes, and we can do that over the next year.
Okay.
For right now, y'all need to, as a council, pass a resolution waiving Section 117-52, the notice requirements, as just for the next year, until
Okay.
December 31st, 2023.
So do we need to make a recommendation tonight as a council
It's-
to
it's-
waive 11752 until December 31st, 2023?
Yes, we will see if we can do that under ordinance committee, because it's not an ordinance, but I think we will be able to
Okay.
do that.
All right.
Okay.
Does that agree with what you wanted to do, Shane?
Yes, sir. Appreciate y'all's help on that.
Should have, yeah.
Okay, moving on, discuss utilization of new online zoning maps, or the classification process, rather, still 3A. Y'all, if you turn in your yellow binder, the ordinance binder, 4H, if you look at the bottom right corner, 4H, that's your classifications and land uses. I wanted to talk about making some modifications, okay? The first modification, I wanted to scratch, we're just talking here, scratch small business in R.5, R2. To me, if you're going to want to put a small business in an area classified as residential, then you're going to need to get it reclassified as small business, neighborhood reclassification. To me, the whole purpose of zoning something residential is because it should be used for residential purposes. So that's just my thought. I'm going to introduce that modification.
So where are we at? What page, where are we at?
It's just in, like, say 4H is page, actually 1, I guess. They're not really numbered, but
Okay, so we're looking at
R1, just look at R1, okay? And don't worry about the actual definition of the purpose, because that's been fixed already, but look at section 117-46, permitted uses under R1. Okay?
They got convention stores.
If you look at,
Convenience
I guess that'd be the number, see how it's counted, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that type of stuff. To me, R1, okay,
Look, so R1 should be residential only.
that's how I feel, and it's currently not like that. You can put, it's currently, you can put
Convenience stores out too?
small bit, any,
You just need to reclassify.
yeah, you just need to reclassify it if you want a small store.
Commercial. There's a couple.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like number 9, scratch it.
Well, let's, I tell you what, let's, I guess,
Convenience stores, you know, to me, you got to reclassify it if you want to put a convenience store in an R1 area, or R1.5, or an R2, or any other residential areas. I'm not against putting convenience stores where they need to be placed. I'm just saying, to me, if you're going to put a convenience store, a Dollar General store in somewhere, then it needs to be reclassified as maybe commercial or small business.
everything ought to be reclassified. I mean, look, I mean, residential is residential.
Residential is
If it's not
residential.
residential, it needs to be off. Same thing with R2.
The same thing with R2 and R1.5, all of the Rs, to me, and look, we don't have to vote on this today, we don't have to vote on this in the council meeting, we don't have to vote on this in the next council meeting, but I just want to begin
think you have a problem
modification
with
to fix that.
You just need to go through and take, if it's not residential, it needs to scratch it and just
Okay.
remove it and make sure it is somewhere else in the ordinance. If there's, you know, is there some other place in the ordinance that zoning exists?
And then under not allowed for those residential areas, I wanted to add, see where it's got landfills and gentlemen's clubs and adult video bookstores? I want to add businesses that, how do you word it, that sell alcohol for primary revenue. How did we say that later on somewhere? I think we got that properly defined somewhere.
But wait a second, if we're gonna strike all businesses from residential,
nowhere
we
they can sell it
don't, we don't need to, we don't need to
Okay,
add it.
okay, if y'all agree that, okay, I'll go
Let's
there
do it.
too.
You won't have to worry about it if you take.
If we
them
strike
other-
all the businesses out, then we don't have to worry about it.
And then I want to talk about this real quick. You got 5 acres, okay? It's one parcel property. And you zoned it residential, okay? But it's not subdivided. What that means is it can be subdivided to meet the requirements of under R1, okay? But you want to put a horse on it, okay? Well, to me, you should be able to put a horse on it. If it's, 5 acres, it's zoned R1, but it's a parcel of property of, greater than 1 acre, right? So I don't, what I'm saying is I did not see under R1 where it allowed for livestock. My thought would be, and y'all help me with this, is that
We have rural zoning that allows for livestock, don't we?
I don't think so. I could be wrong. To me, maybe you make a little note there, somewhere, under R1, R2, R1.5, you know, if the parcel of property is greater than 3 acres, livestock is allowed.
Well, don't we have a zoning for 3 acres and above?
We do, but what if you got it zoned R1 because you're
Well, I
going to
think it
allow
don't-
for minimum lot
I think it
size?
only matters if you're gonna build something on it. I mean, I think you
Say
can
that
still
again?
put a fence around it. put-
Well, what I wouldn't want to happen is this, and this came up in some of my meetings with some of the constituents in my area. They're a little concerned that if, being it's not listed, and it's currently classified as R1, that they're not allowed to have livestock on the property. It might be 10 acres of property classified as R1, so that it can be subdivided in the future for, 1 acre lots, but you can't put a horse on it because it says you can't. It's not listed as a land
So,
use.
But that is zoning. If you want your land to have a horse, zone it to have a horse. If you want your land to be 1 acre lot, zone it to have 1 acre lots. But you can't zone it to have 1 acre lots and say, I want to use it for something else.
No.
No, that's exactly what you're saying.
No, no.
You're saying I want to zone it for R1 in case I want to chop it up in the future, but I want to use it for something else right now, but I don't want to go through the process of making it R1 later. So make your property for the use it is now, and then if you want to change it later, change it later. But you can't say I'm gonna zone 10 acres R1, but I'm not gonna follow the R1 rules because that's big and I want to put a horse on it now.
I'm not saying you don't follow the R1 rules. I'm saying we changed the R1 rules because just because you have something classified as R1 doesn't mean that every single parcel within that R1 classification is exactly 1 acre or less. You can have an area, a large area, where you have 2 acre lots and 3 acre lots and a 10 acre lot and a 20 acre plot and a bunch of smaller lots, all of it zoned R1. Like 10 acres of it, you might want to
Why do
have.
they want to pay taxes on 5 different parcels of land? when
They're
they
not,
can
it's not
pay it on
subdivided
one?
yet. It means that in the future, it could be subdivided, but the minimum,
so they
the
wanna
minimum
leave
lot
their-
size would only be able to be 1 acre.
Future, then in the future, when you want to subdivide it, you zone it the correct zoning.
They don't want to reclassify. It needs to be classified
Well, then
now
you-
correctly as into R1, because it's residential area, but it's 10 acre lots. So
But
you
this
don't want
is-
to,
this is
what you
what-
don't want to do to me, y'all, is you don't want to say, this large area right here is classified R1, and then have this parcel R1, this parcel agriculture, this parcel this parcel that, and have all these multiple different parcels zoned differently. To me, the way to do that is just zone it R1 and then have your land use that allow for R1 if your parcel was bigger. Say you're classified as R1 and your parcel is over 3 acres, then livestock is allowed.
So.
You see what I'm saying?
But see, that, now, if I'm not, I hadn't really, I could be wrong.
You have people in
Don't we
Livingston-
allow for lots in rural, doesn't rural allow for lots just a different density? We got rural zoning? Do we have rural zoning?
What do you mean? There's R1, R2, R3, R1.5.
Okay,
What do
so
you
do we
mean?
have agriculture zoning?
Yeah.
We do, but that minimum acreage is 3 acres, so most property,
So this is my thought. One of the things that everybody's always come to us about zoning is we want to stop a pig farm coming beside us.
True.
So if you put in there that you can do livestock in a residential, what stops them from building a pig farm up in the middle of residential property?
good point. Maybe we list it as certain types of livestock.
Okay.
I'm just saying, if you got 10 acres, y'all, if y'all disagree, I understand. I'm just saying, if you got 10 acres and you currently have a horse,
And you need to
we would
zone
need to
it?
make sure that the people are protected and somebody's, one of these compliance officers are not going to go out there because the neighbor complains and says, hey, you need to remove your horse because you're not zoned.
Well, then, here's
agriculture.
the deal. If you are R1,
Mm-hmm.
you can't have a horse, period.
What if it's
And
10 acres and you currently have one?
Then zone it where you can have a horse. And it's
Zone
10
it local.
acres. Zone it for what you're using it for. That's the whole
Well, let
point.
me ask you this. Isn't zoning about future growth? What if you zone an area because the future growth needs to be 1 acre lots, okay? And everybody agrees, the property owner, council, everybody involved agrees that In the future, it can be subdivided, and the minimum lot size is 1 acre, right? But currently, today, the parcel is 15 acres, right? It just happens to be adjacent or in the amongst of, it's surrounded by R1 property.
Hey, if
You see what I'm
If
saying?
you got 10 acres surrounded by R1, I don't think you're gonna have a problem rezoning that R1 in a later date. I don't think there will be no problem getting it rezoned to R1 if everything around it is already R1.
You need to zone property for the current use, or you need to zone it for what the future use is, and you need to conform the current use to the future use. But you can't say, I want to be R1 in the future, but I don't want the rules to apply to me right now.
You can't do that, and I'm gonna tell you why. We're talking through this, don't get upset.
Okay,
Take that scenario out of the picture, okay? Say you have,
Shane, your mic's not working. Push it down on
there you go.
okay,
no, push that down.
Your top's not down.
Push the mic down into the box. There you go.
thank you.
All right.
Okay, take that out of the equation. What if it's commercial, guys, and it's currently being used residential, okay? But the property owner and the surrounding land use all along the corridor, okay, is planned to be zoned commercial, okay? Well, you're going to zone it commercial. It's currently residential. You're going to want to allow those people that currently live there to continue that land use that they currently live today. It doesn't automatically mean that, you know, a business is there. They're currently using is that, but the future use, you can allow them to be commercial in the future. So what I'm saying is they need to be protected. The current use needs to be protected, right? And then the future use, you can zone it for the future use. You see what I'm saying? So to me, you can have a 5-acre parcel of property and zone it R1, right, for the future, and the people can decide whether or not they're going to subdivide it or if they want to. If they subdivide it into 1-acre lots, then they're going to remove their ability to have a horse or some certain type of livestock. But if they choose not to subdivide it and they're currently using as you know, horses and stuff like that, then they ought to be able to continue that until they so choose not to.
If they have it on there now, they're grandfathered in.
Well, okay, I thank you for saying that. But where is it in writing that they're grandfathered in and no compliance officer is going to walk out there and tell them to get their horse off the property? That's the issue.
I think the building structure might be grandfathered in. I'm not sure uses are grandfathered in, meaning that if
Right.
I got a house and it's zoned commercial, then my house can stay there, but future development will be commercial. But I'm not sure that I've got something zoned R1 and I've had horses on it, that I can continue to have horses on it. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, we can't run out there to somebody that's got a horse farm and just zone their property R1 and say, now get all your horses out
And so I
of here.
think therein lies the issue. If you want to continue with the horse farm, you need to zone it as a
Needs to be
horse
rural or
farm.
agricultural.
Because here's the deal, let's look at it.
What if it's not a
You have-
farm, you just have 2 or 3
Wait a second,
horses?
you have more restrictive going down. I think if you're putting a house on commercial, that's okay, but to take something and imply it into residential is a different situation.
Hey, say that again, Gary?
So if I've got, let's say I've got a house on 190, right? 190 being the commercial corridor. We know that that's going to be commercial.
You're going to have both, but
Right, you're going to have both, but all that's going to be zone commercial. And you can have a house within commercial, and we might need to make some adjustment.
well, it doesn't really say you can,
Well,
but
we might need to make an adjustment that says an existing residential structure can stay. But you can't go building more houses in commercial.
right,
Just
correct.
But at the same time, if your property is R1 and you have residents around it, you can't let them continue to put agriculture within that deal that's one of the things we're trying to protect. The house isn't going to negatively impact the commercial.
I mean, I don't know.
Well, wait a second, a house isn't going to negatively impact the commercial business. It isn't going to create additional noise or stink or anything else. But a horse farm or a horse or whatever could negatively impact a residential area. I think that's what we're trying, I think that's what you got to look at. You got to look at, will the current use that doesn't meet the zoning negatively impact the zoning, and if it does, then you can't allow it. So I think that's what kind of went through this process. I think that's why if you do want to have a horse, you better go zone it, whatever you need to be to rural, whatever, so you can have 3-acre lots. Look,
I think we need to discuss it a little more.
I think we need to talk about it more.
I mean, that's just-
We'll discuss it.
That's just my thought
Talk to Tracy
process.
some about it, get him involved with it, and,
Let's talk about that some more then.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll talk about that more.
Look, we've got some of these things that need to be addressed tonight, to be introduced tonight. Am I correct on that?
We're going to get to as much as possible. This was talked about 2 weeks ago.
I think some of these things need to be addressed tonight, though, don't they? Does G need to be addressed tonight?
You can always put it on the council agenda without having the approval of the ordinance committee.
Cuban crossing, we need to do that tonight.
Yes, we can just go through them fairly quickly.
Yeah, let's just take our time and go through them pretty quickly. Okay, so we'll talk about the classifications, the definitions, the land uses more later. You already have some actions to make a few changes. Let's make those changes and take another look at it. Y'all cool with that?
Yep.
All right. Anybody want to say something about that? Okay, go ahead. Mr. Gomez. Is that mic working? Mash it? Because I couldn't hear you. Not red.
Probably need a section in your non-conforming uses, which are to continue as long as they're used continue. Or you pick the time, 6 months, a year.
Very much appreciate that comment.
Yeah.
That is a very wise statement.
That'll help
I've thought about that in some way, shape, or form myself. Non-conforming land use, I can't remember exactly how he said it, but it's recorded, so we can talk about it more later. Anyway, okay, moving on to new business. I just want to make one quick statement about the maps. Okay, zoning maps, they're really, really important to be accurate, right? We have some ARCIS maps created, right, to where you're going to be able to electronically go on the council website and look at the map, right, and your parcel number and know exactly how it's classified. We're working to get those updated to where they reflect and they're accurate to those PDF maps. We're going to have that in the next month or so. They're working on that right now. Okay, new business. Which one is the most important, Gary?
G is the most important right now.
4G, we're going to do it first. Okay, ordinance ratifying the membership of the Board of Supervisors of the Jubin Crossing Community Development District. Okay. Anybody more familiar with that? Want to discuss this real quick?
You got anything you want to say on that, or anything you can enlighten us on with it?
Well, I don't know if I can enlighten you or not, but I'll tell you what I know. I'm Scott Crawford. I represent Jubin Crossing, the CDD, the Community Development District, and the EDD. As you're aware, Councilman Mack, we have an EDD that collects sales taxes to pay for certain infrastructure improvements at Jubin Crossing. We also, when we created the ordinance for the EDD, we created in the same ordinance a CDD, a Community Development District, and that would impose property taxes on residential areas. We have a multifamily project there, an apartment project that we've collected property tax on for the first time. We've never had any revenue there in the CDD before, and so we've had no need for a board. The board of the EDD is comprised of the council. We're recommending the same for the CDD.
Do we have that written in ordinance somewhere, Ms. White?
Caroline is going to check.
Okay.
And
Sounds like a logical, good idea to me.
And if, Councilman Talbot, if we need to make it an ordinance, we can do it at the next meeting.
I think that's what we're going to do.
4G.
We're going to
Is it
see
after
if we've
4H?
got it drafted now. If it is, we're going to introduce it. Is this it? So this is the one that creates the development district?
That was the Community Development District.
Well, this is the EDD.
The EDD issue is really the only thing that needs to be decided tonight. We can do the CDD on the 21st. But I think Sandy's a little bit We kind of just threw this on her at the last minute because we got this revenue in from the sheriff's office.
So this is the EDD. Is this what we need to adopt? This is what we need a positive recommendation on tonight?
All I want to do with the EDD.
So we need an ordinance ratifying the membership of the Board of Supervisors of the Juban Crossing EDD, which are y'all.
Which will be
So
us.
if you just want to make a motion,
I want to
we'll,
make a motion to introduce,
So y'all's board has passed that, and we just need to ratify it.
That's correct.
Okay.
I want to make a motion to pass the ordinance as drafted right there. And as soon as Sandy brings in the one for the CDD, we're going to make a motion to adopt a positive recommendation on the CDD and introduce it tonight.
This resolution you handed me, Mr. Gary, is about adopting the budget for 2023 for the EDD.
Okay, and that's-
The EDD's board's already been formed, the council is the board. All
Okay,
we're
so-
doing is adopting the budget, because the legislative auditor's going to get on me if I don't do it by the end of the year.
Okay, so is that by ordinance or by resolution, Lauren?
It's
It
an
is by
ordinance.
resolution.
Oh, it's an ordinance.
that is what y'all are doing next. Right
Yes, sir.
now.
Yes, sir.
We need an ordinance ratifying the membership of the Board of Supervisors of the Juban Crossing.
Community Development District.
Or community.
Community development.
Community.
Okay, so I'll make a recommendation that we adopt that, positive recommendation, and then we'll have it to pass out tonight at the
Council meeting.
I'll second that.
Well, do we need to do that at
Pass
the
it now.
Juban meeting too?
Just pass it.
5:45?
Here it is. This is the CDD?
Yeah. We need to do the CDD tonight, and he said you can do the other one on the 21st, right?
Okay.
The EDD is ready to go. The EDD budget adoption is ready to go.
One of those EDD budget?
We can
The
wait
EDD budget we
until,
already have. And this is all CDD, this is the same ordinance? Okay.
there's a CDD and an EDD. The CDD has to do with property taxes. EDD is sales taxes. And that EDD has been in existence or been functioning since 2015 when we built the commercial structures and started collecting.
Come look at these two documents real quick.
So CDD, we're going to wait.
We're going to wait on that.
Okay, we're gonna wait.
just
EDD is the one we're going to do
Let's
tonight.
just focus on the adoption of the EDD budget if
That's
you'll allow.
by, okay, that's by resolution. Is that on the agenda tonight?
Yes, sir.
That's on the agenda.
Okay.
These are resolutions. Was it the CDD or the EDD that the Board of Supervisors needed to be worked out?
The CDD.
The CDD?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
That's not what you have. Just
Okay.
an
Never
ordinance
mind. So we're gonna-
ratifying
So we're going to give a
membership.
positive recommendation on the EDD budget tonight.
I hope you do.
Okay.
We will.
That's not what needs to come out of this meeting.
Okay.
This meeting, you guys are sitting as the current Juban
That's on our
Crossing.
agenda. We're going to take care of
Okay,
that. Don't worry
thank
about
you.
that. This is
Right now.
something else.
The
This is the
Juban-
ordinance meeting, right?
This is the ordinance meeting. The Juban Crossing Community Development District is a board that you guys sit on. We need an ordinance ratifying the membership of the Board of Supervisors, making y'all the Board of Supervisors, because you guys have been the Board of Supervisors since 2015 or 2016, but we never officially made y'all the Board of Supervisors.
Okay. Do we have the
We're
ordinance?
going to handle both of them tonight.
Sandy does have the ordinance, it's just not in front of y'all at this time.
Okay.
So let's get a motion
Make a motion to,
to ratify the Board of Supervisors, is that the name of it?
For Juban Crossing Community
For the
Development.
Juban Crossing Community Development District.
Correct.
All right.
and I'll make that motion.
Jeff Hart made the motion. Gary Talbot seconded it. All in favor? Aye.
Okay, so we made
So
two
we're gonna-
motions tonight, one to accept the budget of the EDD and one to create the Board of Supervisors of the CDD.
The budget has
The
nothing to do
budget, we
with
don't
y'all.
have to.
Okay,
It's on
okay.
our
Budget has
regular
nothing to do
agenda.
with
Okay.
We're going to handle it on the regular agenda.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just
and I apologize for the confusion. The ordinance committee is a new thing for me. I'm
Yeah.
just getting used to it.
All right.
Thank
Let's
you.
go to,
I think we're straight now.
let's go to 4A real quick.
We need to end this thing.
Let's go to 4A real quick.
Okay, 4A, don't we have to have a meeting in between our council meeting?
We got a time.
Okay, 4A. What are we talking about here? 4A.
4A, here's the problem. 4A currently, right now, people can come in with a piece of land and get 2 addresses for delineal. Let me make sure I've got that. Lineal descendants. and they can get one address for a family member or friendly acquaintance. Here's the problem. With all these addresses that we're allowing, we're creating a 911 address problem because we're allowing addresses to stack on top of property when it was originally developed and designated that doesn't have enough addresses for it without subdividing it. So what I'm going to ask that we do is change the definition to be one address. You can have one additional address on a residential lot or any lot. You can have one additional address without subdividing it. And it can only be for a lineal descendant or lineal ascendant, up or down. You can either have a family member up or a family member down and one additional address, and that being it. No additional addresses other than one unless you subdivide the property. Because we are creating a 911 address disaster. I mean, we're taking corner lots and putting 3 lots on them. And when that subdivision was originally designated, they weren't planning on having 3 additional addresses on every lot, so we're creating a 911 address disaster.
Okay.
So I would like to amend section 125, 176 to say the placement of one additional mobile home with one additional address only for a lineal descendant up or down of the landowner.
I'll second that.
Okay, just got to ask one quick question. Does it have to be direct,
No, it's got to be lineal.
lineal?
It's got to be lineal,
So
meaning that,
grandfathers, great-grandfathers, things of that nature,
Right.
that's lineal.
right, kids, grandkids, great-grandkids, not third cousin by your mama's.
What if it's a nephew you raised? Waiver?
Waiver.
Okay.
I mean, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to one address, we're gonna go to the maximum of 2 addresses on a lot. That's the max you're gonna do. And it's gonna have to be a relative. And even if that relative is a cousin, you gotta get a waiver on the cousin. Only way that you get a current permit and additional address is if it's direct lineal up or down.
Right now, I'm in favor, but I'm going to think about this more before we actually vote.
Well, we're gonna introduce it tonight.
Okay?
So we got you got 2 weeks to vote on it.
Okay, so do we need a favorable recommendation for that?
Made motion, I'll second.
You already made a motion, second? All in favor? Aye. Okay, so do we have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Got a motion on the floor, adjourn the meeting? Got a second?
I'll second.
Got a second? All in favor? Aye. Okay, well, we're going to take a